exciting to be here with you all tonight. I hope everybody's getting a chance to finish up their dessert. I didn't want to slow down your dinner any farther than it was. So I am delighted to see all of you are fed and now have had the opportunity to have some dessert. It's my first time really speaking anywhere where I have seen someone who speaks of words that really truly resonate and make my heart feel at peace, like Imam Abdul Malik did. To many of our community, I think there is a trauma that they suffer every time they see me speak or on TV, because one, they are living with the anxiety of what is she gonna say and how are people going to react to it. And it is true that coming to Cair events sometimes feels like returning to a crime scene, because somehow there are so many people in this country who are triggered by seeing Muslims gathered in one room, who are excited about civic engagement, willfully ready to fight for their civil liberties, make sure that the constitutional rights that we all have enshrined in our Constitution is extended to everyone. And no one is more triggered than the President of the United States. I've spoken about how I've felt for a while now, how his fear of women, of Muslims, of immigrants, of Black people have all come together in one being every time he gets to see my face. And I am excited to truly have the opportunity to serve as that nightmare for him every single day. But in all seriousness, we are truly again gathering at dark times for Muslims, not only here in the United States, but around the world. In the UK, Boris Johnson was just elected again as Prime Minister. This is a man who said Islam is the problem, who linked Muslim women who cover their faces to bank robbers, and someone who said having anti-Muslim rhetoric is anti-Muslim fear is natural. This is a man who himself is an immigrant, but said he would personally guarantee that immigrants who come to Britain will no longer be able to treat Britain as their own. Whether it is in Great Britain, or India, or China, or even here in the United States, Muslims truly, for the first time, are being dealt with repression and hate. And it is important for us to recognize that. Because if we do not recognize and speak of everything that is taking place around the world in regards to the Muslim community, we will not be able to prepare ourselves, pull our resources together, and find a way to push back against that hate. It's times like this that it is easy for people to feel despair. It is easy for us to want to feel like we want to hide under our beds, to retreat, to tell our daughters, maybe it's not so safe for you to be boldly yourself, to tell the elites of the world, you shouldn't say words that are challenging to powerful people, to the status quo. But I offer you another option. The other option is for us to organize, for us to rise up, for us to remember that yes, we are lions, and we should never allow ourselves to be caged. And with the words of my colleague Jen Lewis, to remember that it is always okay to make good trouble. I've said it before and I will say it again. We as a community cannot allow ourselves to be terrorized. We are strong, we are resilient, and we will always be able to have people show up for us when we show up for ourselves. In a time where it wasn't politically okay and our country had a president who was running and banning Muslims, a lot of people told me when I was running for office for the first time that it might not be so great for me to continue to wear my hijab. But I knew they were wrong because my hijab is me. And in a time where we have the first 2 Muslim women in Congress, for the first time in our nation's history, with the kind of president who did fulfill his promise to execute an executive order to ban Muslims, especially ones that come from my home country of Somalia and my mother's ethnic country of Yemen. People said maybe we shouldn't lead the charge in fighting against the Muslim ban. But we did, and we will continue to do that. Because as members of Congress, we are given that privilege to have an opportunity to have influence in the political process. And if we are not going to use our influence, our power, our voice to fight against a system that is not fully functioning for Muslims, then what good are we? And when Cair and others were fighting against the watch list, the unconstitutional watch list, people said, Ilhan, maybe you shouldn't be the one that leads on an amendment to add to our defense budget bill, because people will say certain things about you and it will lead to that amendment not having success in the House, in the Senate, and maybe the president won't be able to sign it. But I did, our amendment passed. It passed the House, it passed the Senate, it survived the conference committee, and it's now in the final bill that sits in front of the president. And in a time where being a refugee and an immigrant so visibly attacked by the President of the United States, people have told me that I shouldn't be the one advocating for immigrants, for the extension of people who have temporary status, like Liberians, El Salvadorians, Somalians, and Haitians. But there's nothing temporary about living in the United States for 18, 10, and 5 years. You get to have children, buy a home, build a community, and then one day, whoever that president might be gets to decide your status is no longer valid. You get to leave. Everything else, along with your children, gets to stay. That doesn't seem like a normal immigration process. That also doesn't seem like a humane thing to do to people. And so we continue to lead the effort. We've gotten Liberians the ability to have permanent status successfully in that same bill. And now we're working to get permanent status for Haitians, El Salvadorians, and Somalis who actually don't even have a country that is fully functioning for people to go back to. So I tell you all of this to tell you that it doesn't matter what people think your place is in society. It doesn't matter what issues they think you should advocate for. It doesn't matter how they expect you to show up in society. What matters is the recognition that you have of what your worth is, where you consider your place to be, what your issues are, and how much, like the Imam said, you're willing to sacrifice for it. And the Yemenis in this room know that when the Yemeni bodegas decided that they were going to boycott, that they were willing to sacrifice their money for their ability to use their power collectively to bring about change for Yemenis that are struggling in Yemen, for Yemenis who can't reunite with their families here in the United States, and for Muslims that are constantly attacked by papers locally in New York. And so clap for them because their work is admirable. Many of us are considered courageous, but truly, when you are losing your money and your ability to actually feed your children for the sake of others, then that truly is courageous. And none of us have exhibited that kind of courage like the Yemenis have for Muslims in this country. It is not lost on me that every group in the United States feels like they have power and that there is repercussion when people express hate towards them. But anti-Muslim hate does not have that attached to it. And anti-Palestinian bigotry also in this country does not have political, right? There is no political loss if you are against the survival, the existence, the humanity of Palestinians. And there is almost no political loss for for any politician that expresses anti-Muslim bigotry in the United States. And those things are possible because we refuse to make the issues that are important to us be at the forefront in every conversation we engage with in our communities, with our politics, and with our politicians. And so I am going to make two requests before I leave. My first request is something that is contrary to what the Imam said earlier. And I apologize, Imam. I actually believe that politics could be a tool for positive change. And it is one thing for us to march in the streets, to boycott, but if we don't have the right people in office that are receptive to the kind of pressure we are willing to put on them, that change will never come about. So I want to make sure that all of you are registered to vote.
We are.
And as Omar said, and he'll probably say it later as he does his comedy routine, we are worth, each person is worth 100, 200, 300 votes. Because we have a network as human beings. You have your children, your parents, your cousins, your aunties, your uncles, and then their cousins, their aunties, their uncles, and their children. And so in this upcoming election, make sure you are not leaving any vote untapped. Can you make that promise to me? Yes. Wonderful. Now the second ask is about resources. We come to Cair events and give our resources because we understand the tremendous value that organizations like Cair provide for us. But there is another kind of resource that our community is known to give, and that's political contributions. And what I am going to ask of you is that when you give a political contribution to any politician, you hold them accountable and have the kind of conversations you have with the Muslim politicians. Some of you say yes because you've probably been in rooms with me. Here is a little secret that many of the other politicians you come across might not know. Is that you actually love politics. You deeply care about policy, but you're only willing to have those conversations when a Muslim is in your living room running for office. Now you need to reverse that, because many of us already care about the same issues as you. Many of us see the world through similar lenses, and many of us have the same perspectives. Many of us have had the same challenges and opportunities in this country. But when you have others who are not Muslim in your homes, or you are at their events, you have to make sure that you are having the same conversations you're having with us. That you are calling them in the same ways you call our offices
about the votes that they take. That you're asking them, why are they not sponsoring a particular bill or an amendment in the same ways you call our offices? So it shouldn't matter whether they are running for a school board, city council, for the county, state representative, state senator, governor maybe, or member of Congress, even president. I know many of you are excited to support Bernie, so am I. But that is my ask, is that you make them feel the same pressure, the same urgency to fight for you as hard as they fight for every single other constituency that they have. Because that is what you ask of us, and we willfully do that every single day, no matter how challenging it gets, because we know that our communities aren't being heard or represented on Capitol Hill like other communities are every single day. And so if we want to stop being the caged lion, then we must start roaring. And I ask you to make sure that you are roaring in every living room you are in every ballroom you are in, whether you have the mic or not, and that you roar the loudest at the ballot box this year. Thank you so much for having me, and have a great night.